Welcome to the Mind Body Podcast, your rebellious podcast about a strong body, calm mind, healing, and fully living. I'm your host, Maria Angelova, creator of the Angelova method, an integrative approach to mind and body connection. The Angelova method redefines your success equation to include a healthy body and a healthy mind, and was developed based on work with hundreds of clients, as well as my personal journey, creating the life I want, ditching stress and anxiety as a financial professional, and stepping into living a life of limitless possibilities. Hi, Rebels, and welcome to the Mind Body Podcast, your rebellious podcast with me, your host, Maria, where it is all about a strong body, calm mind, healing, and fully living. And your special guest today is Terry Tucker, an author who is going to take us through his journey of where life has taken him, where he is now. Great stuff coming up, great rebellious stuff coming up. And before we get started, Terry, let's get to know you. Welcome, Terry.
Well, Maria, thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to talking with you today.
Me too, Terry. Terry, tell us a little bit about Terry. Give us 3 words and a little bit of a backstory behind who Terry is.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with tall. I'm 6'8" tall. I went to college on a basketball scholarship. So I'll start with tall. I guess I would say courageous. I guess I'll go courageous and resilient. I've been battling cancer for the last 12 years now. It has seen my foot amputated in 2018, my leg amputated in 2020. I have tumors in my lungs, which I'm still being treated for. But I find time to do things that I enjoy. I was a very athletic person growing up. I was a negotiator on a Metropolitan Police Department SWAT team. So I've done a lot of physical things in my life. And I've often been asked, you were very physical growing up. Now that you don't have a leg, you're in a wheelchair and things like that. How do you reconcile those two things? And my response is, when you can't do the things that you're good at, you do the things that are important. And I think at this point in my life, I'm trying to do things that are important, not just things that it was fun to do, but does it have any value? Are you bringing any value to other individuals? And so I guess that's a little bit about me.
So right before we hit record, we started talking about people's stories, and I shared with you that I was talking to a client about the podcast, and she said, "Oh, I didn't know you have a podcast." She said, "What do you talk about there?" And I said, "I talk to rebellious people who have a story to share." And she said, "Oh, I don't have a story to share." I said, "Of course you do. Everybody has a story to share." And in her case, we kind of kept going with the team. She is dealing with pains and aches, and she's had some adverse things happening to her body. And she's now showing up and taking action so that she can feel better. And Terry, I don't know, maybe you have seen that too. There are people who just kind of give up when things don't go, when there are challenges like that. And some challenges, such as the ones you're dealing with, are bigger than, something is not working out. And can you talk to us about the mental piece of getting to rise up beyond the circumstances and saying, well, I'm just going to be a victim of my circumstances?
Yeah, I've seen certainly in 12 years of battling cancer, people that have turned their entire lives over to someone in a white coat with initials after their name. And I get that. I mean, if you don't understand it, if you don't know yourself, if you don't know where you're going, I get that. You do that. I've always wanted my life to be based on the decisions that I made, not on the ones that somebody else made or that I didn't make. So I'm constantly asking, my doctor, why are we doing this? If you want to do this, you have to explain it to me in terms that I can understand. I'm not a doctor. I don't understand the science behind this. So make me understand this in lay terms. And I've come up with, over these 12 years, what I call my 4 truths. So I'll give them to you. I have them on a Post-it note here in my office that I see multiple times during the day. And they constantly get reinforced in my mind. And they're just one sentence each. And the first one kind of goes along with what you just asked me. It's control your mind or your mind is going to control you. The second one is embrace the pain and the difficulty that we all experience in life and use that pain and difficulty to make you a stronger and more resilient individual. The third one I look at more as kind of a legacy type of truth, and it's this: what you leave behind is what you weave in the hearts of other people. And then the fourth one, I think is pretty self-explanatory. As long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. And I call these four truths kind of the bedrock of my soul. I think they're just a good place to try to start to build a quality life off of. And I used to think they were all equally important. But the more I've read, the more I've studied, the more I've experienced, I really think the question you asked me is, how do you control your mind? How do you deal with the mental aspect of life? Because that really guides or dictates how we progress in life. If you can't deal with the mental side of it, you're never going to be able to deal with the physical side of it. So I remember the Cleveland Clinic here in the United States did a study on brains, and it said on any given day, and there have been numerous studies done like this, we have like 60 to 70,000 thoughts that pass through our mind. Most of those thoughts are thoughts that we had yesterday. So we only have about 3,500 new thoughts a day. 80% of our thoughts are negative, and our minds operate at a speed of about 1,000 words a minute. Given all that, your mind can still only hold one thought at a time. Why would you want to make that a negative thought? And I think one of the biggest problems we all have, and I am guilty of this, is that we think with our fears and our insecurities instead of using our minds. And I think that's an incredibly important part. If you understand that, you want to do something. I really want to do that. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I don't have enough information. Maybe I'm not smart enough. What will other people think about me if I fail? That's thinking with our fears and our insecurities. That's not thinking with our minds.
Yeah. And that's not having a clear mind. And we base a lot of that on expectations, right? Societal's expectations based on past experiences versus where we are today. And, last night in my mindset coaching call, we talked about faith versus fear. Are your actions driven by faith or fear? Because the energy behind those actions is very different, right? And another interesting stat is, I don't know if you've heard that, is that only about 5% of our conscious mind operates. The rest, 95%, is subconscious. And if you don't have an idea, if you don't have awareness of what is happening in that subconscious mind, you get that bright idea and 5 seconds later, you're convinced yourself, oh, I can't do that, right? You talk yourself out of the ledge. And you keep doing that over and over and over. And then you're like, I don't understand why my life doesn't change. Well, because you keep doing the same things over and over. And if you keep the same patterns, guess what? You're going to produce the same results. I mean, it is as simple or as complicated as that, right? So I totally agree with you, Terry, that mindset awareness is key to how we choose to live our life.
It really is. And I always tell, especially young people when I'm talking to them, if there's something in your heart, something in your soul that you believe you're supposed to do, but it scares you, go ahead and do it. Because at the end of your life, the things you are going to regret are not going to be those things you did. They're going to be those things you didn't do. And by then it's going to be too late to go back and do them.
I love that, Terry. You know what else I tell people? When you come up with that brilliant idea of something that you want to do, give yourself at least a chance and explore that I can versus just, I want this, oh, I can't. Because the minute you say I can't, guess what? You have convinced yourself that you cannot. And any kind of solution opportunity that is there is gone. Explore, okay, what else can I do? How can I make this? Like, how can I fit it in my time? How can I fit it in my budget? How can I step out of my comfort zone? Where can I find people who would support me? There are so many options when we open our eyes to what's possible versus stay in the mindset, well, I can't.
Exactly. And it's a way of looking at things, whatever they are in life, in terms of, do I get to or do I have to? When I go to treatment, it's like, do I have to go to treatment or do I get to go to treatment? And it's all how you look at it. Do I have to go to treatment? Yeah, it's going to be painful, and I'm going to have a reaction, and I'm going to get stuck with needles, and I'm not going to feel good. Or do I get to? Because maybe the medication is going to help me, and maybe my life is going to improve, and maybe at some point I won't have to be on this. So it's really two different sides. It's like having a tea kettle. Which handle do you want to grab? You want to grab the one of hope and opportunity, or the one of desperation and despair? It's really up to you. Do you get to do something, or do you have to or do you have to do something? Because I can promise you, whatever that thing is that you're lamenting about, there's somebody out there that would look at that and say, boy, I'd give everything I have just to do that thing for 5 minutes.
Yeah, just to get that opportunity, right? Totally with you. I mean, the way we look at things, the perspective we choose to take, it's a game changer. And, and I would say for me personally, I've had to do a lot of mindset shifts through my entrepreneurial journey. And it's a constant game every single day. It's so easy to fall into, oh, this is hard. Oh, this is challenging. Oh, I don't want to do this. You know what? Once again, going back to energy. Oh, I don't want to do this. Psych yourself up. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to do this, right? It's a completely different approach to the exact same thing. The energy that you go into it is going to be completely different, and you're going to get different results depending on which way you go into it, right?
Absolutely. And the hard is what makes it good. I mean, if it was easy, everybody would do it. I mean, if you're willing to put in the time, the effort, the energy to do something that is difficult, you are so much further down the road than so many other people. There used to be a professional football player by the name of Jerry Rice, who's a Hall of Fame receiver. And he had a great quote. He said, "Today, I will do what others won't, so that tomorrow I can do what others can't." Are you willing to put in that time? You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I love it. And Terry, based on our prior conversation, you had a quote that really caught my eyes. And the quote is, winners think about what they want to happen. Losers think what they don't want to happen. And I think that goes exactly hand in hand to what we're talking about, of perspective, of choice, of taking action. I can't tell you how many times I say action is the only thing that will change your life. You can read every book. You can quote every book. If you do not take the action and if you don't make changes, nothing is going to happen.
Yeah, you've got to start. And I think that's what paralyzes so many people. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to begin to take that action that you're talking about. Anywhere. There's never going to be a perfect time. There's never going to be a perfect opportunity. Just start today. I remember I was listening to a masterclass by Sarah Blakely, who was the woman who started Spanx, who founded Spanx. And she was talking about how she started that company with one prototype and $5,000. She said, I was a door-to-door facsimile salesperson. That I knew sales. I didn't know anything else. And her husband tells a story that says, he said, if she would have waited until everything was lined up perfectly, he said, I guarantee somebody else would have had that idea and would have run with it, and we wouldn't be talking about Sarah Blakely. She just jumped in with both feet. I know there's the tendency, and I know I've done it in my life, to sort of just stick your toe in the water. Let's test it out. Just jump in. See what happens. I mean, the worst thing that you can do is fail. And that's another thing. I think a lot of people think that successful people have never failed. And I am here to tell you that the road to success is paved with failure. Anybody that tells you that they were successful without fail is lying to you. They are absolutely lying to you.
You can attest to that, yes.
Yeah, you have to fail, but it's not the failure. It's what you learn from the failure that you can take and move on to the next step. That's where people learn, people grow, and people get better.
I say there's no failures, there is only lessons. And that goes exactly to what you're talking about, because, my personal role, there's so many ways, so many things that didn't go the way I want them to, so many things that felt like failure. There were those nights when, you're crying and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. That's it. And then you have that why and that passion, and you see how you help the people around you, which is something that you mentioned in the beginning. I wanted to bring up, you mentioned serving others, how that helps you feel better. And I think that's a huge part of being on a growth journey, because when things don't go smooth, when you know that you're impacting others through what you do, that's an impactful way to ground you back to your purpose.
It really is. And there was a children's television personality by the name of Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers. As a matter of fact, Tom Hanks made a movie about Fred Rogers' life. And when Fred Rogers died in 2003, his family was going through his effects, and they found his wallet. And inside his wallet was a scrap piece of paper on which Mr. Rogers had written 4 simple words: life is for service. And I think you're absolutely right. We tend to think that we are born empty. And I've seen so many people do this. I'm born empty. And when they get out of school and they get into life, whatever that looks like for them, that they feel their job then is to fill their empty self up. I've got to get a great education. I've got to make a lot of money. I got to drive the nicest car, live in the nicest home, have the nicest gadgets. And by somehow filling themselves up, they will be happy and fulfilled. And Maria, what I found is it's just the opposite. We're not born empty. We're born full. We're born with everything we need to be successful already inside of us. We just need to find it, pull it out, and use it to our benefit. So our lives should not be about what I can get. It should be about what I can give. And we should spend our lives emptying ourselves out, certainly for the betterment of ourselves, but also for the betterment of our families, of our friends, of our communities, of our country. It's not what you get, it's what you give.
It's so interesting. Just a very recent example, talking to a client, and she's buying a new house, and she was kind of not excited about the new house. So I said, let's talk about that. So long story short, she is trying to fill a void by buying new things, and she's searching for something to fill a void. And what we talked about is that it doesn't matter the house, the car, the whatever, it's what's inside. And until you heal the inside, you can try to fill that void with whatever you want, and you still won't find it if the inside is not healed. So like you said, we have so much, we're gifted everything that we need to live a life, to thrive in life. And, it's really interesting for me, Terry, how, I have higher education. Nobody has ever talked to me about any of that. I feel like my education, society has been a lot about fitting in this box. How can you fit in this box? Instead of be unique and thrive and let your talents and let your energy spill over and create and flow. That is not the typical way we are raised.
It certainly isn't. And I think so many people really are kind of, there's a consternation of, I need to find my purpose. What is my purpose? What is my purpose in life? And I've always felt we talk about that word purpose in the singular, like it's one thing. And maybe it is for somebody. For me, it's been purposes, plural. When I was young, I was an athlete. I felt that my purpose was to be an athlete. I ate, drank, and slept basketball. And then as I moved into adulthood and got into law enforcement, got on the SWAT team and things like that, I felt that was my purpose at that point in time. And now, in all honesty, as I'm probably coming towards the end of my life, I think my purpose has changed again to put as much goodness, positivity, motivation, love back into the world as I possibly can with whatever time I have left. And so I think we tend to get, well, my purpose has to be my job or my occupation. Now, if that's the case, that's great. That would be absolutely great if it lined up that way. But it doesn't have to be that way. Your job can be over here. It's what you do to pay the bills, but your purpose is over here. It's to be a podcast host, to be an artist or a writer or an activist or whatever you feel it is in your heart. So don't confuse those two things that, your purpose has to be your job. It doesn't. It's okay. listen to what your unique gifts and talents are, and then find whatever you think is interesting. And I'll say this, there's no such thing as the perfect job. Just like there's no such thing as the perfect person, the perfect family, nothing is perfect. And if you wait for things to be perfect, you'll never do anything. You'll never get out of the starting gate. So jump in and see what happens. And I remember reading a book by the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur magazine. His name is Jason Pfeiffer. And he talks about when he graduated from college, he was working for a small town newspaper. And he was like, okay, but I'm not really going anywhere with this. I'd like to be an editor. He said, so I went to work for a company that taught me a certain type of editing. And he said, as soon as I learned that or mastered that, I switched to another company and learned a different form of editing. And then I switched to another company and learned a third form of editing. And I think the problem with a lot of people is they get comfortable. It's like, okay, I'm making decent money. This is a decent job. I'm not miserable. So I'm just going to stay here. I'm going to be comfortable in my life. We do not grow when we are comfortable. We have to get outside those comfort zones. I used to tell my basketball players when I coached them, you need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I'm going to make practice as uncomfortable as I possibly can for you. So understand that the uncomfortable things in life are going to cause you to grow. If you're comfortable right now, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, you're dying. Don't be that person.
I was literally just having a conversation with my last client prior to this recording on that exact topic of being comfortable into where you are. And, if that's your choice, that is totally fine. That is up to you. Just remember that is a choice, right? That is very important to remember. And I'll just jump in and say that I would tell you, Terry, my purpose, even in the past 7 years of entrepreneurship, has evolved. It started at one thing, and it's the more you listen and the more you tune in, the more you let your true self be, the more you're led towards like the next step of your purpose, right? I mean, I'm one of those people who has found her purpose, and that's my job. And I consider myself very lucky. I would say I had to get very uncomfortable to get to living my life in my purpose. And that was also a choice. So, I do think it's possible. You just got to be willing to step out there and, what do you want? That's what I tell people. What do you want? And if you really want it, freaking go after it. Don't just sit and wait. One of my coaches, she says that, and I love that phrase. She says, success loves speed. And I'm like, yep, it does. If you're just sitting around and waiting and thinking and not making decision, you want to do something, just say yes to yourself. It is not that complicated, right? And build that mindset brain of, it's okay to tell myself yes when I want to do something. So, yeah.
It is. You're absolutely right. And I would just add to that, most people will look back on if they get to success, and they will realize that where they grew, where they developed, where they were happiest was not when they reached the success, but in the struggles along the way, in what they learned, in developing themselves. So, you've heard that story. It's not the destination, it's the journey. It really is the journey. The journey is where you grow. The journey is where you become the person that you are when you become successful. So don't think that you're just going to arrive at success and you're going to be, no, enjoy the journey, enjoy the run, because by the time you get to the end of the rainbow, who knows? Maybe you don't have a lot of time left.
Embrace every day and every moment and embrace the now. All right, Terry, what is your definition of rebellious?
I'm going to say it's doing something that interests you, but it also scares you.
Ooh, I like that.
I want to do that, but it scares me. I'm going to be rebellious, and I'm going to go for it. I guess that would be my definition of rebellious.
I'm going to do it anyway. I like that. That aligns very much through my journey and what I've been. So I like that. All right, Terry, where can people find you?
So I have a blog/website called Motivational Check. You can leave me a message there. You can get access to my social medias and all that. That's all at motivationalcheck.com.
Okay, motivationalcheck.com. Rebels, you know the spiel. If you have any questions for Terry, if there is any advice, if he has a very diverse background, as you heard, let us know. Put on those questions. Please share this conversation with anybody who might feel inspired. click a like, connect with Terry, follow him on social media, and very importantly, do not forget to stay rebellious every single day. Terry, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here.
Maria, thanks for having me on. I enjoyed talking with you.
Same here. Did you enjoy the conversation? Like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Want to learn more about the Angelova method? Please visit our website rebellious-studio.com.